Hey guys. Right off the bat, I want to thank you guys for helping me reach level 30. You may have noticed that the comic intros are missing, but don't worry, they'll be back. I'm working up actual storylines, so to give myself more time, I'll be waiting until I reach level 100 to bring them back. Until then, we'll just be jumping right into the art. Well, with the exception of today's video, and that's because I promised some fellow artists that I will release a tutorial style video. For that reason, I'm going to start off with showing you guys the canvas settings that I use, and also the brushes. So technically, I use my watercolor brush from start to finish. I simply turn off the pressure settings and use it at 30 pixels for my concept art, then I scale it down to 10 pixels with the smoothing on when it's time to do the line work. Also, if you don't have access to a good watercolor brush, I have a short tutorial on how to make one. The link is in the description. And just a disclaimer, this isn't exactly Sugimori style, but I guess my art style is close enough. We can call it pseudo Sugimori style, or pseudo Sugi for short. You guys did request a tutorial after all, so let's get started with one of my own creations. The first tip I'll give you is simple but effective. Put each body part on a different layer. You'll see that this allows you to freely adjust your proportions with no hassle. Also, whenever you're working on your rough draft, remember that you'll want to draw out full shapes, that way your line continuity is precise. After we've got our basic animal shape down, you may want to adjust the proportions depending on things like the pal's age, size, and stats, but I'll get more into that on one of the next pals, as I'm pretty happy with these proportions the way they are. Once you got your proportions figured out, we could bring down the opacity and throw down a few ideas that would make it look like a Pokemon. Sorry, my dog's choking. What was I saying? Oh yeah, we'll throw down ideas that make it look more like a Pokemon. What? Oh, sorry, I lost my place on the script. So, I've always had a love for Cubone, so I'll be throwing down a cat skull into the design as a helmet, as well as giving it other features that I think would give this cat a musical vibe, particularly heavy metal, since that's the genre of my favorite band. I feel like this is good. You don't want to overdo it. Before I get to the line work, I like to clean up the rough draft with the final little quick sketch. Which is what I'm doing now, the little sketch. A little bit about the palette itself. I sat down and put on music to get my creative juices flowing, and sometimes when I'm having art block, I let the music decide what I'm going to make. My favorite band Kitty popped up first on the playlist, so that decided the body type. The singer's name is Morgan, and she also plays guitar, and her sister is the drummer. Her name is Mercedes, and she also does background vocals. I thought I incorporated their instruments into the designs in a very clever way. The skull comes from the cover of an old EP they released in the 2000s, but also, that's like what's inside the cat's head. Also, with their latest album being called Fire, I went ahead and gave this one the fire type. I felt like I had everything for this pal's mood board handed to me on a metal platter. There isn't much to say about the line art process, so I'll just be speeding through that part. Just remember to scale your brush down. Again, I like to use 10 pixels with the smoothing all the way up. And the main tip I can tell you for this portion is don't be afraid to use your shape tool, especially on the round shapes. I don't think you'll see me use the shape tools on this design, but they really do make things look way cleaner. I like to drop in all the colors on a single layer, then after making a new layer for the highlights, I like to select the specific areas I'm about to work on, allowing me to get into smaller areas without having to constantly resize the brush or switch to the eraser. I know some people think realistic lighting means that all the highlights are facing the same way, and that the same should go for the shadows. And while that has some truth to it, there is quite a bit of highlighting that should be done on the underside of things. After all, light travels and reflects, and real life almost always has multiple light sources. I have like 7 in front of me right now. You still don't want it to be wonky, so if you're wanting to do accurate lighting, just pick a direction you want the light to come from and kind of just make it make sense. Did I mention I got some viewer submissions? I don't know. Well, if I didn't, spoiler alert, but I got some viewer submissions. For pal number 2, I'll be reworking a pal from a pal that goes by IMMENSELIQUID. They have some really cute and some really cool designs in their Albion region, with my personal favorite being Soul Vixen. Be sure to subscribe to their channel, I'm sure you'll enjoy watching their art journey. With all that being said, I ask that you don't judge these artists based on these designs that they submitted. After all, I did specifically ask these people to submit designs that they felt needed to be reworked, and I'm here to help. When it comes to the original design, it's actually quite beautifully rendered, but it kind of has one of those bodies where I can't really tell if it's supposed to be one of the early stages of an evolving line, or if it's meant to be a single stage line. For that reason, I think I'll talk more about proportions and shape language for this section of the video. Considering the dex entry, I wanted to make it look more like a mummy, without it really looking like it's wrapped in toilet paper. And that's not a jab at the original art, it's just usually I think of toilet paper whenever I see cartoon mummies. Applying these subtle stripes throughout the design really gives the appearance that it's wrapped or draped in something somewhat like a mummy. And I thought it would be cool to turn that stone into an actual mask that is almost always covering the face. However, you can get a peek at the raw entity if you catch them at a surprising moment. Aside from making the mummy inspiration more prevalent throughout the design, my main goal with this guy was to give them the shape that would make you want to befriend them. And while I think it's cute and I somewhat succeeded, I gotta admit, it doesn't really resemble the body shape of the original art. In other words, I recognize that I really didn't follow the prompt too well, and it wasn't really fitting to the original sketch. However, I'd like to take one more shot at this, so I decided we're making this guy the Prevo, and BT dubs. I'm sorry for the unplanned pregnancy, but I hope you think the baby's cute at least. Now, let's try this again, shall we? As usual, we're starting with all the body parts on different layers, just to make things easier on future me. Since we already have the Prevo finished, and I already have the original art to reference for the desired proportions, this one's going to be pretty quick. For this entity, we still want them to appear young and befriendable. After all, it is supposed to give the vibe of a Pokemon. So, we're going to be giving them a bean-shaped body, with a large head and long wispy ears, which is hands down my favorite part of this design. Since I made the stone and gem into a full-on mask for the Prevo, I thought I would split it into a few pieces, so it resembles the stone from the original art. I threw in a fragment on the torso, and then made the other chunks into protective orbiting stones. The ears were giving me tons of trouble, but I edited all that out to keep this tutorial smooth. And I just say that to let y'all know that I don't work as fast as my videos show. I mean, yeah, duh, there's a time lapse, but keep in mind that I spend more time undoing than I actually do drawing. Okay, that might be an exaggeration, but my videos are about 2 hours before I edit them down. Just throwing down some highlights before we finish, and as you can see, I don't really fuck with the blacks too much. That sounded terrible. Let me rephrase. When it comes to shadows, I typically let the color itself act as the shadow, with little to no gray washing. I almost forgot to add the stones to the evolution, which is a pretty important part to the design. I hope you like the redesign. Everybody subscribe to IMMENSELIQUID here on YouTube, and let them know I sent you. And just a reminder, links to all of the artists' channels or profiles are in the description. In this segment, I'll be talking about tracing, which is a great way to learn if you're still figuring out proportions. When you're tracing a real-life animal, you're going to want to alter the proportions and make them a little bit more Pokemon-like. Even though we're tracing, we're still going to be placing the body parts on separate layers to easily make adjustments. Also, if you're wondering what kind of goat I was using in the reference image, I think it's called a bagot? A bagot? I don't know how it's pronounced, but I'm going to call it bagot because it rhymes with fat. And yes, I can say that word because I am homophobic. I wanted to do what I originally should have done, which is design the goat and the fish separately before combining them. But in this video I'm only going to be doing the goat, and I'll be saving the fish for a future upload. Since I was rushing my work last time, I didn't have time to give each separate pal the attention it deserves. I literally just went straight into drawing the Capricorn form of the pals. Speaking of rushing my art, let's fast forward to the coloring process. By the way, I know it says normal and rock type over here to the left. It's supposed to say normal and dark type. The way I come up with the color scheme for my designs is I think of 3 normal colors and then I throw in a color that will slightly resemble the typing. By now I feel like I've given enough tips for the highlighting. However, I will say, when I'm highlighting the eye's iris, I like to make a new layer and set that layer's blending option to overlay, still using the white to highlight. This will brighten up the eye and breathes in a little life into the art. Depending on the pal's eye color, I duplicate the layer to brighten it even further, so I run with it and see what you prefer. For this next submission, I thought I would talk a little bit about oversimplistic designs, using the submission from FAKEtuber Jay Atart. While I'm not going to be adding much, I knew I needed to add something, and I had to be subtle about it, because I feel like the simplicity is charming, but I feel like maybe just adding cheek pads and paw pads will make the world of a difference. I also wanted to do a slight reshape, just to give this guy a little bit more of a marshmallow shape, because I won't lie, at first glance, I assumed this was going to be a cloud. To pull off that shape, I didn't really have much to change. I'm just going to crisp up the edges while trying to keep it looking chunky. The submission form had one request, make this guy bulky and speedy, so I thought it would be cool if I made the cheek and paw pads into coals. This little guy will strike his paws against his cheeks to get ready for battle, lighting a fire that is used for rocket speed, giving the same vibe as a guy that punches himself in the face before a fight, to hype his body up. Jay Atart seems to be working on a couple of regions right now, but he's been talking a lot about a Marvel-based region, and I'm not here to spoil anything on that. Subscribe to his channel if you're interested in such a region. But I had an idea while working on this guy, and I'd like to throw your way. What if one of your region's gimmicks worked something like this? Marvelous abilities. A temporary ability that the pals don't naturally harness. So like, even though this guy is normal and fairy type, the species discovered that they can produce fire. This will boost multiple stats while sacrificing one stat. For example, the fire is used like a rocket power, boosting speed and attack stats temporarily, but sacrifices the defense stat, as the warmth of the fire softens the body. I hope you like that concept enough to adopt it into your region. However, I don't think this little marshmallow guy will fit into your Marvel region specifically. Let's get back to talking about the art while I work on the shadows, which there isn't much to talk about on this topic. It should be pretty obvious where the shadows should be placed once you figure out where your light source is. And when you're working on brighter colors, you kinda have to disregard what I said earlier about letting the color itself be the shadow. In this case, we kinda have to work with the black. Here, you'll see me gray washing the shadows. Basically, that means I'm applying diluted blacks, and letting it build up in the darkest areas. Something made me think, what if this guy grew up to be Gengar? So I made it happen. There isn't much to say in this segment, I'll just let you enjoy the art and enjoy the music. You guys make sure to go follow Jay Atart. He has great stuff and he's improved so much since I first came across his work. I'm already a fan, and I'm excited to see your progress. For the 7th pal, I thought I would take a stab at making a fairly simple design, and I know I already served up some in this episode, but I got another cat for you. When it comes to the inspo itself, I wanted to encapsulate the hatred in my heart. More specifically, I wanted to give a body to the hatred I feel in my heart when I look at this. Now, here's a fair trigger warning for those of you who don't like hideous imagery. Ugh, I hate her so much. Look at that fucking face. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go hit her. I'm kidding, of course. I love my little baby. But I feel like there's a spirit of an old cat in me that looks at me with hate in her heart because I have a dog now. I started with the shapes you'd see on a bobcat, which is the mascot for my elementary school, and I wanted it to have a silhouette so striking that it makes up for the lack of a pattern. Don't be fooled by how fast it seems I'm working. It took me a minute to figure out a few things, such as exactly where should I put these markings? What should the markings look like? Does the chest look too bare? And are you really doing all this for free? But while working on this piece, I got all done with a rough draft, and I realized I was not recording. So technically, I'm tracing in this segment, but sometimes I put the opacity so low that the trace reference is invisible after the video is compressed for YouTube, so you might not even see that layer. If you're like me and like to highlight specific areas at a time, you'll want to create a new layer to add additional black lines. This will cut the body into segments, allowing you to do what you need. Just make sure you don't do this on the line work layer, as these lines will be deleted when you're done with them. For the shading and highlighting on this guy, you'll see that on the right, I have enabled the pin pressure settings, whereas I'm working layer by layer on the left side with the pin pressure settings turned off. I was originally going to name this guy Howloathe, but I reconsidered after thinking. Cats aren't really known to howl. And also, howling is a little more of a signal for being lonely, while growling is a little more fitting. Though it's more of a reaction from feeling threatened, not really a sign that the cat hates you. With these things in mind, I shifted the name to Growloathe. Rather than greywashing the shadows this time, I'm applying some vivid shadows directly to a few edges, and you'll see that I'm bringing down the opacity, and sometimes I duplicate the layer and set the new layer to overlay. For this next segment, CRYPTICDRAWS came to me with a special request, so here's a few tips on rendering ice. Let me start by saying, I do think you're already rendering your ice very beautifully, but if you meant that you needed help with the shape, just remember that ice is typically rendered a little bit more jagged, and I'd say it would read as definite ice if it had icicles dripping from the bottom. However, if you needed help with the shading specifically, I would say it already looks great, but it could benefit from one, maybe two more layers of black and white over the icy areas, kinda like this if you'd like it to be hard shaded like the rest of your design. Then set the blending option to overlay, and adjust to your liking to really bring the ice to life. Another tip I could give, though I don't see it too often in Pokemon designs, is try making the ice transparent. But we can't say Pokemon wouldn't do it because Snom exists, and I think Bergmite has transparent ice as well. I could be wrong on that second one. I'm sure there are others, but I don't really want to remember right now. Oh God, help me forget. Side note to God, I'm kidding. Please don't actually help me forget. I already have memory problems, so please don't advance them. To make the ice appear more transparent, you'll want to add the underlying body part, like so, and bring down the opacity. Or another method is, you can fully render the underlying Pokemon first, then render the ice on a different layer, bringing the opacity down. I hope that makes sense without the visual, but that's actually my preference. I typically do the underlying Pokemon first, and then I add the ice later. I don't know, I just feel like making the actual ice semi-transparent is just a little bit more advanced. But if I get too far in my art process while doing the ice first method, I'm not gonna go undo everything. Okay, I gotta move on. I'm saying ice way too many times and I'm starting to feel like a triggered Mexican. Thanks for the request, Cryptic. I hope these tips helped you and anybody else who may be watching. And a side note to CRYPTICDRAWS, if you like this other version I made, feel free to take it and use it however you'd like. And if you have a Blue Sky account, be sure to go check out CRYPTICDRAWS' profile. Give them a follow, their link is in the description. They have so many cool designs, and I've literally never seen one from them that I didn't love. For this next submission, I think the only thing I can really do, honestly, is re-render it using the tips I've talked about throughout the video. There isn't much to critique about the design. I feel like it's pretty perfectly proportioned in both the pattern and the distribution of the body parts. For this portion, I'll just throw up a reminder of the tips I've given throughout the video, and I'll shut up while I let you enjoy the art and the music while I work on this submission from AYUSHPOKEMON. They don't have too much posted on their Instagram, but I have a feeling they got a lot of great concepts coming our way. So if you're interested in following a Pokemon region that's completely made of Paradox Pokemon, give them a follow. Thanks for letting me redraw your perfect design. I didn't change much at all. I just slightly elongated the ears and I added paw pads to the levitating paws. I hope you like it, and I look forward to reworking the evolutions for you. Before I end the video, I wanted to throw one last pal at you. Sometimes you need to sit down and start drawing, just to get yourself into the groove. This pal is something that I drew with kind of a blank mind, probably before I even had my egg and ketchup that morning. So I won't yip and yap about a concept, or anything at all for that matter. Enjoy the time-lapse with some background music I made myself. Plantler exists to be serene and fierce.
Period.
It is said that eye contact with this pal is dangerous, although people will not say why. I'd like to give one last thank you to these designers for allowing me to help rework their designs. It's a very flattering experience because I'm fairly new to making Pokemon myself. However, I've been a fan of Pokemon for about 30 years, and I've been an artist of wide variety my whole life. And again, thank you to my subscribers for helping me reach level 30. Who did you like best? Let me know in a comment, and if you ever feel like you've commented too many times, just leave 2 more. Also, I promise, the dex entries will make their return in the next video. I'm just in the middle of redesigning them, and I felt like they weren't going to be needed too much in this tutorial. Before I send you off, I'd like to invite you to participate in a future viewer submission video. This is targeted at beginners, but if you have a design that you're having trouble figuring out, I'm willing to help. The art doesn't need to be digital, but it does need to come from a viewer, so my only rule is you'll have to send proof that you subscribed on YouTube along with your submission, and you can send your submissions on Instagram. And just a side note that these are not commissions, but commissions are always open and commissions are always prioritized. If you're doing a paper submission, try to take the best damn picture you've ever taken in your life. And whether you're working digitally or on paper, I'm sure you can manage pasting your design onto this dex card I made. Here's the blank version for you to screenshot. And remember, the more info you include, the more understanding I'll have while rendering your ideas. If you're experiencing art block, maybe you can create something using this silhouette. I mentioned commissions before, so here's my menu. Check out the different ways you can earn discounts. I might regret mentioning this, but the discounts are stackable. As of right now, you're going to have to miss me with them trainer designs, because while I am good at human proportions, I need a little bit more practice on trainers, so it'll just be FAKEMON for the time being. And just a heads up, if I don't like you, I'm probably going to charge you a little extra. Commission requests can be sent to me on Instagram, and for bulk orders, go ahead and message me. And by the way, if you search for me on Instagram and 2 profiles show up, they're both me. I use Ballpoint Penguin specifically to post the art of my babies in this pseudo-Suvi style that you see on my channel, and my Remnantide account will be where I post my comics in my own art style. I'm also on TikTok, not the most active on there, but I can change that. Well, that's all I have for my grandbabies today, but thanks for watching until the end. I upload every other Wednesday, but life has been lifing lately, so I may miss an upload from time to time, but regardless of when I upload, if you turn on notifications after you subscribe, you'll be notified of every upload. Until next time, everybody stay safe, and try not to be such a bitch all the time. I know it'll be hard since you've had a lot of training, but I believe in you. Bye.